Hello everybody. First of all, I want to thank the subscribers that come on my channel. When I started this channel, it was very difficult. I'd had a channel before that had nearly 1,000 subscribers and I had to shut it down. Basically, I come under scrutiny from people from my past. There was lies being told about me. Not anything really serious, but hurtful things about my mental health, calling me a Fruit Loop, things like that. And my last channel come under scrutiny for that. And I was never pleased with the music. It left a lot to be desired, to say the least. So I shut up shop and started again and concentrated on Power Up, which rhythmically, I enjoy playing it a lot. And you'll see that's what this channel is built on, mostly. But if you look, you will find a hell of a lot of songs that are not on Power Up. You've got to go through the whole catalogue of videos to find them, but they are there. All the great songs that AC/DC do. Yeah, I had to shut the channel down. I was coming under scrutiny, and I thought, I've got to have a channel. My last channel showed me learning a lot, which is a good thing. But when you're coming under scrutiny and people are watching you, you want to be doing your best. So I shut the channel down. I decided to use a name that people call me. I didn't ask to be called that. The name of this channel, I really didn't ask to be called it. Mad Matt, it was a hurtful thing, but I embraced it. If people think that, well, I call myself that then, and with the rock and roll, it all fits nicely. So that's why I'm called Mad Matt. I never gave myself that name. I'm Matthew Maynard. That's my name. And but Mad Matt is what people used to call me in when I lived down in London. That was what people called me. It was hurtful. It wasn't true. I am ill, but people now seem to think I'm autistic. So it was a bit cruel. And when you've got people coming on YouTube saying a load of lies about you, you want to have a channel that at least plays a good bit of guitar. Yeah. Anyway, if you haven't seen the video about my stepfather, I want you to go back in the catalogue. Ate 'em all, Harry. He thought himself a gangster. I think he still thinks he is, but he's not. The people that I think are the gangsters in this world, the tough people, the hard people, the little children that are born with cancer, the little children that get ill and die. They're the hard people. They're the tough guys in this world, the disabled, okay? That's who I think are the real tough guys in this world. But you're always going to have people on YouTube blowing smoke up these ex-criminals, arseholes. You're always going to get that, even though, they're pushing out a tissue of lies. They'll say absolutely anything to get views. Most of them clout chase. If they don't get the views, they'll stick someone else's name on their video to get the views, to get the clicks, clickbait and all that. And it's bullshit. And I get so fed up with it. People blow smoke up their arseholes, and the people that do that, they're normally criminals themselves. And, it did spoil YouTube for a bit, I think. But I think people are getting wise to it, and stop watching these people. But if you look back in my catalogue, look at the video, Ate 'Em All Harry. It was my stepfather. When I was a child, he abused me. He abused my mother. My big brother went through it. Of course he did, but he was clever. He knew he could read the guy, whereas I couldn't. I was 6, 7. So I'd got all the beats. Me and my mother, really. And later on in life, when my grandfather died, and I went back to live with my mother, I had it all again. And I want to say that members of his family, I promised them, well, I will expose him for what he did. I've been told by members of his family, people who hurt children should be exposed. And it's true. So if you haven't looked at the video, go and look at it. When I made it, I was very angry, very upset. And it was just the start, of me getting used to exposing this guy on my channel. I didn't expect myself having to do this, but sometimes if you're being bullied by people and his associates, you have to fight back. And the way to do that is to tell people the truth. Right. I said earlier in the video, I was 6, 7, and my granddad had to pay a lot of money to rescue me and my brother from the clutches of my stepfather and my mother. Because, come on, look, I love my mother dearly, but she did let a man put his hands on me who weren't my father. And she did pretty much stand by and watch. I know she was terrified, but I find that hard to get my head around. I love my mother dearly, but she did let that happen to me when I was a little boy. And, it's left its damage on me. I did used to go and tend my mother's grave down in East Peckham in Kent regularly. I don't do that now. I won't go there. I know that's a sad thing, but I won't go there because of what happened to me when I was a little boy. My grandfather, he was a good guy. He was one of the good guys, And I always remember what he taught me. And I try and live my life the way he taught me, And this last year or so, I've been stopping painkillers. And I'm nearly done. I'm nearly there. Right. When I was 6, my grandfather, as I say, paid a lot of money, I think, to the High Court. So I want you to know, all this, I've got the receipts, okay? I've seen the receipts, I've seen the paperwork, okay? You're only going to get the truth on this channel. My grandfather, he paid the High Court to rescue me and my big brother from the clutches of my stepfather. He paid a lot of money in the 1970s. I think the figure was something like £7,000 at the time to rescue me and my big brother. My granddad was a cool guy. I don't forget that, Without him doing that, my life would have been very, very bad indeed. As it was for the year or so at that age that I had to live with a guy. What do I remember? Violence, blood, bruises, screaming, my mother screaming That's one of the big memories that I've got. That ate 'em all Harry from South London, Catford. Yeah, that's what I remember. And I remember living in fear. And my granddad took them to court, and we was rescued. We was kidnapped. Let me tell you this story. The guy who kidnapped us was Atem Harry's brother. Okay. So he kidnapped... Hey, stop messing with that camera, you. It's the cat. His own brother took us away and took us to the court. And from that day, we went with my grandparents. His own brother done that for my granddad. And he was punished. Okay. My Uncle Terry and his wife Jenny, they were punished for what they did for us. Jenny was pregnant at the time. And when my stepfather, Atem Harry, I will keep mentioning the name, when he found out, he attacked Jenny. And she was pregnant at the time and she lost her baby. So let's take a second there to think about that. What an evil thing. He hit her and she lost the baby. So how do you describe something like that? The pain that must have caused. And they did it for me and my big brother. And I'm eternally grateful for that. You know, to go against a member of your own family, that took balls, you know. And they was all scared of him. His mother was scared of him. His father was scared of him. He put his father in hospital for 6 weeks, hit him around the head with a frying pan. This guy is a truly evil man. He's still alive, okay? He's probably watching this. I hope you are, Atem all right? I told you this was going to happen. I did say this. Yeah, the whole family suffered at his hands. There's so many stories about this guy. Like I say, and I've seen the receipts, I've seen the court paperwork. You know, in my last video I said about him threatening to bury me alive in the back garden. It's true. I've seen the court paperwork. And what do I think about that? Of course I get angry. Revenge. Everything has gone through my mind. But before my mother died, she made me promise never ever to go and see him. And I never did. But yeah, like I say, he knocked a baby out of his brother's wife. There was an incident within his family. He had a sister. And I think he was in his teens, and the sister was younger. And in the old days, they used to have a big pot of boiling water in front of the fireplace. And he was playing with his sister. And she ran out at him, you know, I suppose to cuddle him, or, you know, they were playing. And he purposely moved out the way. And she ran into this fire with a big boiling hot pot, and it covered her, and she was disabled for the rest of her life. Okay, he disabled his own sister. When my granddad rescued me and my brother, my granddad took us to a village in Kent, East Peckham. Everyone knows that's where I was brought up. All the people down there, they all know exactly who I'm talking about. All right. Let's get that straight. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. You're only getting his first name here, but everyone knows who I'm talking about. Yeah, my granddad took us to the village of East Peckham, bought a house, and we lived there with my nan and granddad. During the time that we lived there, my mother stayed with my stepfather. For 8 years, I was with my grandparents. And during that 8 years, my mother left my stepfather, run away from him 42 times. And every time I saw her, she was black and blue. It was obvious that she'd been beaten. You could tell she was terrified, thin. And she left him 42 times, and she used to run to my granddad's house and then go back to him. And that happened 42 times. And I think I've never really, I forgave my mother for that, but I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that. And during that time, my granddad used to get messages come through that watch the milk that's left on our doorstep because it was going to be poisoned. He was going to come and kidnap me and my big brother. He was going to inflict violence on my grandfather and my grandmother. The threats were constant. My granddad died young, and I blame him, My granddad shouldn't have died that young. He died that young, I believe. He got ill with the stress. The stress of seeing his daughter black and blue, and the threats that were coming through to him and his grandchildren. As I say, there were threats. Watch the milk, it's going to be poisoned. All sorts of different things were coming through to try and terrorise my grandparents at that time. Loads of things I remember about my mother. Okay. People who know me all know my mum was Sue. She probably didn't tell a lot of people about this business. One time my mother was expecting twins. He kicked them out of her. Okay? He once kicked my mother so hard in her bottom that he broke her coccyx. And the coccyx is a bone that we've got in the base of our spine that used to be a towel before we evolved into modern humans. And it's the bone that's left from a towel that we used to have, and that's the coccyx. And he kicked her so hard he broke it. As I say, my mother was always smothered in bruises when she come down, a bag of nerves, black and blue, covered in bruises. And I think in a way that used to make me remember what had happened to me when I was small. The memories are still there. The beatings, being hit with a belt, the threats of violence. This man standing over me, wanting to hurt me and then hurting me. I remember it. My granddad died, and I ended up going to live with my mother again in London. And the guy was obviously in her life still. But what I'm concentrating on now is my mother and when I was small. I will come on to that in the future. Yeah, violence is what I remember. Violence. Screaming. My mother screaming. But it was violence, the fear of violence. I used to find myself constantly locked in the bedroom in the house where we lived with this guy. I was constantly locked in the bedroom, so much so that my great-grandmother, who lived up on the hill, used to walk past every day, and she used to see me up at the window, and I used to wave at her. And she was obviously concerned. Everyone was concerned. That's what I remember about that. The violence. The screaming. That's what I remember. And I won't forget it. But, you know, my mother, she obviously loved this guy, and, you know, really it was a betrayal to me and my big brother. A betrayal. I was close to my mother, but in the back of my mind, I always had that, you know, the thought of, you know, she let that happen to me, you know. But, you know, my mother's dead, and people, this man and other people, try and change history. They try and change history. The guy now, he paints himself as this sweet old man, you know, and it's not true, it's lies. You know, he's pure evil. Yeah, as I say, when my mother married him, she married him with a black eye. And even on the wedding day, I remember violence. You know, there was always violence. I remember him attacking his own brother in the house. He used to do oil paintings, ate 'em all Larry. And once I was in the bath, and he had a painting easel, you know, a wooden easel, and his brother come round, and he was just smashing his brother up with this easel. The guy is a piece of work, pure evil. But yeah, I've got a lot of horrible memories, a lot of which are too difficult for me to broadcast over YouTube. So I'm just giving you a rough idea of what happened and what he was like. He was perverted as well to my mother. He used to force my mother to have sex with other men while he hid in the wardrobe and watched, obviously knocking one out, I suppose. He was perverted like that. He continued on like that as well. The next family he got involved with, he was locked up in prison for attempted murder. Members of his family went round his house to sort stuff out for him, and they see the holes in the walls behind the pictures, behind the wardrobes. So he obviously was still up to that sort of thing, you know, with the lady who he was with after my mother, who, by the way, she had it on her toes as well while he was locked up on remand for attempted murder. Yeah, he brags about that, you know. I think he sort of wears that as a badge of honour, you know, attempted murder. He wears it as a badge of honour, It's sad that, you know, these people get respect of certain other people for doing the most evil things. But if people only knew the real truth, they would know that, fuck, this guy's evil, you know? But, yeah, so that's what happened. We lived in Kent. I lived in Kent with my grandparents, and he was constantly beating my mother, and my mother was constantly running away from him, black and blue. There's so much violence, I remember. I had a bicycle when I was a little boy. It was called a Rally Striker. I don't know if you lot remember them. Or what we done, us kids, we put ramps in the road. Okay, and we used to go up one ramp and jump. You know, and of course I come flying down the road on my Rally Striker. I've hit the ramp and gone up in the air, and I've come down on the front wheel, and my face just scraped along the floor. I was pretty badly injured, and I went indoors crying. And my big brother witnessed it as well. My face was all scratched up and everything. And because I was crying, All Harry smacked me on my face. And my big brother remembers as well, blood everywhere. So he was very sneaky doing things like that to me. I was obviously injured, crying anyway, and he took advantage of that and bang in my face. This is a bit upsetting for me. That's why I'm going to leave it there. I've done half hour. I'm going to leave it there for now. I will come back with another video about this guy, this old man. I've got tons of stuff to tell people what he did to my mother while she was pregnant, all sorts of different things. I'm sorry that, you know, you're all waiting for ACDC, me to play some rock and roll. That is going to happen. I'm just enjoying my life at the moment, you know. I've stopped taking painkillers and everything, so I'm just getting used to that. But I will be back playing guitar as soon as I can, and I will be making more videos on this guy. Okay, so look, everyone who knows me out there, if anyone asks you who's he talking about, make sure you tell them his full name and share this video. Thanks for listening. It's great therapy. God bless you all. See you soon with a guitar.